Welcome to the show. Welcome to Your Thought Life podcast. I'm your host, Michael Anderson. Today, we're talking about breaking free from analysis paralysis. Yes, family, we're going to deal with this again. It's been about a year and a half since we talked through this, but it is time. Let us jump right in. Anytime that you're thinking about tackling a mindset challenge, as a leader, as someone who's endeavoring to increase your career trajectory or to really take hold of some business goals, you have the opportunity to get stuck in analysis paralysis, that endless loop of overthinking, second guessing, and sometime, if you were like me in the early stage, procrastinating that makes you feel like I'll just kick the can until tomorrow. Then tomorrow becomes the next day and the next day, the next day, till you get right up on the proverbial completion date. Now you're scrambling to try to get a product, the completed task done in such a way that is satisfactory with no real opportunity to go back and refine, to critique, to do a second pass. It is what it is. That is a horrible place to try to have professional growth, personal growth, or to obtain any sort of milestone. Here's the good news. There's a framework that I'm going to share with you today that's going to help you escape it. It's going to allow you to move forward with clarity and confidence, removing that barrier that makes you feel like if I just sit on this, somehow, some way, it's going to get easier. Osmosis is going to take place, and I'm just going to have a far easier go at this specific task. Let's take a look at this thing together and see if we can't come to some mutual conclusions and put together a set of tools that we can use if we find ourselves in this situation. What is this situation, though? What is proverbial analysis paralysis? It's a mental gridlock where you're overanalyzing options, weighing every possibility, and allowing the fear that ensues that you might make the wrong decision to bubble up to a level where it stops all progress. This is the essence of analysis paralysis. If we can get our arms around, from a process perspective, that we are prone to overanalyzing, looking at all of the possibilities, allowing fear to creep in when those two things are full blown, overanalysis and weighing every possibility. If we can get our arms around that, family, we can conquer this. We find ourselves in loops, proverbial patterns that don't serve us because we don't really understand what's going on the inside. And it doesn't matter if you're an entrepreneur, a business leader, someone in pursuit of a greater degree of career progression. This is applicable to all. No one escapes this. When you find yourself falling into that trap, it's because you're wired to strive for perfection with minimal risk. Your brain has a safety and security mechanism that says, don't do things that we haven't done well before, because if you do, then I have to sound the alarm. Cortisol levels spike. Full-blown fear is at the forefront, and that gives birth to an absolute halt of all progress. If you can understand this, rewind it, listen to it a few more times, so when you find yourself in this situation, you understand at a physiological and a psychological level what is taking place. You know you have a propensity to overanalyze, to weigh every possibility, and to allow fear to come in as a result of this safety and security mechanism you got from your ancestry. Once you have a firm understanding of that, when you find yourself in this situation, now you have the construct You have a left and right boundary. You know what's going on. Not knowing is half of the problem. The other half of the problem is, what do you do when you find yourself in this situation? Before we jump to that, I want to share some science with you. Research is showing us demonstratively that decision fatigue and cognitive overload are key drivers to analysis paralysis. We've got to keep things simple. We have to have an innate desire in us to exercise the KISS principle. Whatever it is we're doing or endeavoring to do, we must keep it simple. The longer we delay a decision, family, the harder it becomes to break free from this pattern. This is something you've been doing for a very long time. This is what we call learned behavior. It can be unlearned, absolutely. The cost of staying stuck is paramount. Analysis paralysis, for me, is incredibly frustrating, but more so if you're in business, it can become incredibly costly because it's slowing down your progress, it's retarding your growth, and it's undermining your confidence. These are all key pillars that you need to move your business from where it is to whatever your financial or your marketplace goals are. Imagine how many opportunities that slip through your fingers, slip through the proverbial cracks, because you're too busy deliberating on all of these various options. Does this resonate with anyone? Is this making sense? It certainly does to me, because I got a bunch of examples running through my head even now. But the fear of making a mistake can become a self-fulfilling prophecy when it keeps you from acting, period. Now you're in this loop. You desire to break free, but you've got these three factors that are just literally cooking your goose at a temperature that is so hot that you don't even want to touch it. Just let it go. Hence the procrastination. Well, what can we do? What is our solution path when we find ourselves in this situation? We do have a framework for you today. I am pleased to share this with you. We got an incredible amount of participation on social media, as well as what is called direct mail to me from our podcast platform, saying this was an incredible blessing to an awful lot of people. So let's jump into it and find out, what can we do to simplify decision making, to reduce mental clutter, to reduce decision fatigue, and act promptly without fear getting in the way. Should we do it? Let's do it. One, you're going to limit your options. Research from psychology.com shows that having too many choices leads to decision fatigue. We said that. We know that we need to narrow the number of options that we have. If you got 5 things that you're mulling over, let's get that down to 2. Let's get that down to 2. Do the analysis on those 2, get to 80%, and move. Period. End story. Number 2, set a time limit. Behavioral science has showed us year over year, literally, that creating urgency reduces overthinking. If you've got a timeline by which you have said, I've got to move forward, you must stick to that timeline. Give yourself a timeline if you don't have one, so you can stick to the timeline. Number 3, use the 70-80% rule. For some people who are in the entrepreneurial space, they'll gravitate more to the 70%. For those of you who are endeavoring to move your career from one trajectory to the next, you may want a little safer pathway, so you go with 80. Either way, what we're doing here is we're saying that we don't have to be perfect right out the gate. There is going to be a margin of information that we won't know, that we will learn along the journey, and we become students of the journey. Whatever it is that we need to acquire, we know that that's going to come up at some point in time. We're no longer shocked. We're no longer riddled with fear. We simply see this as a learning opportunity. We get to where work stops because we have this knowledge gap. We acquire the knowledge, we put together a plan, we execute it. After we've executed, if it doesn't work, we look at the pieces and parts that did, and then we come back and say what didn't work, retool it, tweak it, hack it, try it again. We continue this process until we complete the task to the standard. Number 4, prioritize actions over perfection. This is just another layer to this to demonstrate how important it is for us to be moving, progressing, executing without the mindset that says, I need to do this A+. Professionals who are sort of stuck in a pattern of perfection where being right out of the gates A+ is imperative for them, they're not going to be able to do this. If you have a friend, a loved one, a close associate, a business partner, you just have to know they're not going to be able to do this without some very profound assistance. For the rest of us, we are understanding that the cognitive restructuring that says I don't have to be perfect is the way to go, is the way to success, and is a sustainable model that does not offer burnout and or mental fatigue. The perfectionist track is just the opposite. Finally, number 5, we're going to debrief and learn. After making a decision, we're going to reflect on the outcome. This is key for us to improve future decision making and building trust in our instincts. When you have come to a place where you've said in your heart and you've got alignment with your mind, we're moving forward. We've got 70% of the data. 30% we don't have. We're going to learn that on the journey. There's a need for you to debrief and learn. There's not a need for you to say, I have failed. This can't be done. Big difference. Huge outcome delta. Remain positively, mentally minded, and debrief. Learn from your trials, your tribulations, your shortcomings. See those as learning experiences to propel you forward. This is a very simple framework that you can use right now to get you to where you need to be. You limit your options to prevent overload. Setting a time limit activates the brain's reward system, which encourages you to focus. When you can focus and put your mind to something, you can achieve. 70% rule, 80% rule, depending on which camp you fall in, acknowledges that there's no decisions that we're going to make that are risk-free. And this ought to make it very simple for us to move forward, knowing that there is a knowledge gap. It's going to surface at some point along the journey. We are open to that and learning what is needed to be learned at that time to overcome what appeared to be a challenge. Prioritizing actions rewires the brain so that you can embrace imperfection, which is a hallmark of success, especially if you're an entrepreneur or a small business owner. We have put together 2 principal components today. What we said is in part 1, these are the mechanics that make up this particular situation, analysis paralysis. And then we said, here's a framework that you can use to remove this barrier if it should show up in your life. I believe that you are now equipped to do exactly what you need to do to be the best version of yourself, to show up in the world in a way that gets you your dream, your goal, your aspiration. I want to thank you so much for joining me today for this episode. I appreciate you taking the time to listen. Feel free to connect with us on Linktree. The link is available in the show notes. You should know that you are enough, you can do it, and you are uniquely equipped to realize your goals. Until next time, Take care and keep moving forward.